Margaret Sanger. She is the mother of Planned Parenthood. She started it. Why did she start it? Because Margaret Sanger believed in the course of this world. She believed that there were people who needed to be eliminated from the earth because of their inferior DNA. Now remember, in the immigration bill, there's going to be a biometric thing in that bill. And it's basically going to identify who is and who isn't. Margaret Sanger, simply by the course of her own white Caucasian thinking, determines that people who are not white Caucasian are genetically inferior to other people, and oh my goodness, they're breeding like rabbits. They're like taking over everything. So you know what she did? She created Planned Parenthood in order to get rid of the genetically inferior people. Here are some quotes, and I appreciate who put that up there. Somebody, Bruce put that up on Facebook. Bruce, God was in it, man, because I was going to be looking for this stuff, and I thought, I don't have time. Here's some quotes from Margaret Sanger. She said, blacks and immigrants and indigents are, quote, human weeds, reckless breeders, spawning human beings who never should have been born. She believes, Sanger believed that for the purpose of racial purification, couples should be rewarded with who choose sterilization. On the right of married couples to bear children, couples should be required to submit applications to have a child, she wrote. The purpose of promoting birth control was to, quote, to create a race, listen to this now, to create a race of thoroughbreds. That's an exact quote. She was a racist. Hillary Clinton says, Margaret Sanger's my hero. I love Margaret. Hillary, Barack, you have a racist. You had a racist as Secretary of the State. On the rights of handicapped and mentally ill and racial minorities. And let me read the quote. More children from the fit, less from the unfit. That is the chief aim of birth control. Now, I want to tell you something. Several years ago, and you might hear me talk to these people when they come in our church. We can't put them on camera because of HIPAA rights and all that stuff, medical privacy and everything like that. But you hear me talk to guys in the back. Several years ago, a group home, and there are several in Jefferson County, they take in people that have different levels of incapacities. There was a group that was about 4 or 5 guys in this home, government-funded but also privately funded home. And the director went to my mom's church, but she called me and she said, Pastor Mike, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. She said, we have these guys here, and they love to go to church. They have varying handicaps, but they know what's going on. She said, can they come to your church? And I said, well, yeah. She said, just like that? And I said, well, yeah, why? She said, because nobody else lets them come to their church. She said, sometimes they'll make a noise or something like that, or sometimes we'll have to take them out of there. One of them is a diabetic, and sometimes they have to take him out and get him some help. And I've done 2 of the funerals of 2 of these guys, and I miss them. I miss them as much as I miss anybody who's ever died out of this church. Eddie was one. Stan just recently. Mike Kulik, I didn't get to do his funeral, but he was in fact, if you see in our church, if you see a painting upon the side wall of our church, Mike did that for our church. And I love these guys as much as I love anybody in our church. And doing Stan's funeral, I bawled my eyes out because I just loved these guys. But I'm glad that when they die, they go to heaven. I'm glad. But anyway, to say that these people should have been killed at birth or pre-birth, you make me mad. I have a dear pastor friend, Brother Charlie Jameson. I have probably more respect for him than I do most people on this planet. I love him and his family dearly. They raised I think 2 or 3 daughters and 2 sons, and then they had a little boy. And Riley, I adore this little boy. He's now about 12, 13 years old. He was born with severe Down syndrome, deaf, mostly deaf. He can hear a few sounds. His mom and dad were told he should probably be killed. And they said absolutely not. And they've raised him. They taught him sign language. They have trained that boy. We go down to Lonnie Burke's church in Harrison, Arkansas, and all day Friday there's preaching. And they've trained that boy to sit for most of the day in that church pew. It's unbelievable. And I love that young man. God's going to make him whole one of these days. Whew. That's Margaret. That's Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood hates in blacks, Latinos, you name it, inferior people, people with problems. They hate them. But they're very well funded. But it's all about the course of this world. Where are we taking mankind? This started in Genesis in the Garden of Eden, turning men into gods, and it was obvious to Margaret Sanger that blacks would never make it. Latinos would never make it. Certain Asian races would never make it. Mongrels, half-humans, shouldn't be allowed to procreate. We need to eliminate them so we can produce a race of thoroughbreds, she said. She said, we do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, she said, if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. We want to eliminate the Negro population, she said. People are they're dumb to follow after this. Absolutely insane. There's something wrong with you. You're the one that's brainwashing America. It's not Mike Hoggart. It's not the other guys. It's you. So anyway, that's why she goes. That's why she goes to Africa, because Africa's full of Negroes, and we've got to cut those people out from populating, repopulating, because they are genetically inferior. And I want you to notice there on the left, women and the new race. You see that? You know what that is? That's the day, that's what Hitler was all about. Sanger and Hitler probably would have made a good husband and wife team, because they both hated the same kind of people, because they were pushing the course of this world, and a spirit was driving them to do the things they did. Now here I'm going to go back to this thing here about what she said about what the superhero said. I am Dionysus. And somebody who had either listened to me or they did their own study, they astutely remembered what Dionysus was all about. He's Bacchus, Dionysus, other variations of this God idea. Here is Manly Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages. Here's what he said. In the initiation of the Bacchic mysteries, that's Dionysus, the role of Bacchus is played by the candidate who, set upon by priests in the guise of the Titans, is slain and finally restored to life amidst great rejoicing. The Bacchic mysteries were given every 3 years, and like the Eleusinian mysteries, divided into 2 degrees. The initiates were crowned with myrtle and ivy, plants which were sacred to Bacchus. Now, the reason why these plants, myrtle and ivy, were sacred to Bacchus and to the initiates was because the myth is that his blood was shed and it dripped on the ground, and out of it grew ivy, which is like DNA. You see that, okay? That's the symbolism of that. So it's all about the shed blood of Bacchus. Do you see a similarity here? The shed blood of Bacchus or Dionysus that brings this myrtle thing or this ivy thing to life. Now here's, if you remember this, I've talked about this before. I want you to get a hold of this. Because Bacchus or Dionysus was a murdered or the dying god. I presented that in Another Jesus. He is the dying God. How does he die? The reason, and I want you to think of in the Bacchic or Mithriac mysteries or in Freemasonry, it's all about ritualizing a death and then bringing someone to life through that death, just like a worm to a butterfly. And I want you to think in your mind that everybody who works in the abortion industry or works in Planned Parenthood or is part of this whole liberal ideology, these people are led by a spirit. The spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience, the prince of the power of the air that is directing mankind in the course of this world. And so everyone who works in an abortion clinic has a spirit in them, working through them. So why is it when these people witness the death of an unborn baby, they're okay with it? Why is it that they can go through this over and over and over again and not ever think anything of it? Why? They have a spirit. And just like if these people were to wear a fez, you would swear that was a Freemason lodge in the abortion mills. And here's why. You see, the rituals of Freemasonry, based upon the Bacchic and Mithriac rites, the rituals of those rituals themselves were all about the destruction of Bacchus or Dionysus and his resurrection. Now here's the thing. Dionysus was not just, he wasn't shot, he wasn't whatever. His body was torn into pieces. Are you getting where I'm going with this? His body was torn into pieces. That's how he was killed. How do they do these late-term abortions? Do you know? They don't want the